Hi, folks. It's Professor Eli. Thanks as always for all your hard work. I know this most recent assignment was particularly grueling, so I appreciate the fact that you were able to put so much time and effort into it. A number of you have been saying to me that you're having a little trouble at this point, sort of figuring out how all these different things that we're doing, how they fit together. And I get that. I think that's a reasonable thing to uh, be asking about. And I think this week's assignment, the outline, should make some of that really clear to you. You'll notice the module has an outline template in it. I'm actually not that crazy about the template. I'm not talking about the sample outline, which is really, really good. I'm talking about the outline template. So I went and drew up another outline template. This one's called outline template number 2, and I'll go ahead and send it to you as well. And I think this sort of really breaks down two things. I think it makes it clear the assignment itself for this week, which is to sort of chart out your course for the rest of the semester, what you think your ultimate final paper is going to look like. So you really should think of this template as a kind of map, right? This is a complete and total map from the beginning of the paper till the end. So I'm hoping that that will make this clear. And I also hope that in sort of clarifying that for me and for yourself, you'll see how some of the previous work that we've done together, how that sort of fits into the overall project of writing a research paper. So I'm going to get right to it. This is outline template number 2. Take a look at it. Like I said, I'll send you a copy. The introduction is just an overview of the topic. You've kind of done that already. But again, you're just giving us a broad overview of the topic itself. And then you're moving into sort of different categories about the larger topic. What I have here is, why is the topic noteworthy or relevant or significant? You should really have a sense of why this even matters. And then I want you to sort of refer to maybe your most important source. I know you have a lot of sources at this point, but I imagine that there's one that you're relying on particularly, and the one that's serving as kind of the basis or the foundation for the work that you're doing on the paper. So you might want to do something similar to what you've done in the previous projects, the summary and question, and also the research proposal. You want to just sort of summarize what your most major source is saying. That will help to sort of give readers an overview of the topic. Make sure you include a supporting quote or paraphrase, including the in-text citation. You might want to actually have two. It doesn't have to be a direct quote. It has to be a paraphrase. As I've said to you before, professors like me love paraphrasing. It's great, but remember, paraphrases must also have in-text citations. So you're just giving a sort of broad overview at the beginning of this outline, and then you are posing your most central research question. Again, it's understood that you may have other research questions that you plan to pursue and explore in the paper, but what is the sort of central one that you expect to pursue? You'll want to have that there in section 2, and then there's also an area there in section 2 for any additional questions. If you don't have additional questions, that would seem odd to me, but it's possible, in which case you would leave this blank. But, I would imagine at this point there's some other issues that are coming up that you plan to at least touch on in the course of the paper. So that would be indicated there. So you'll give a little brief overview here. You'll tell us a couple of quotes here that you expect to use in the introduction of the actual essay. You'll raise your question, and then finally, you'll move on to section B here. What basic information is necessary in order to understand the topic and to put your research question in context? Any facts, figures, raw data of particular significance? So I really want you thinking here about data, numbers, statistics. That's the kind of stuff you want to be looking for now, that really sort of puts your stuff, your information, your topic into a context, helps us to understand what its significance is, why it matters, who it's having an effect on. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for in the B section here of the introduction. And I want to sort of remind you folks, and I think the assignment says it, you're not, you're all of this information will be fleshed out in the actual paper. This is just the outline. This is just you showing me the steps that you'll be taking. So these are the steps you'll be taking in the introduction. This is the information that will appear in the introduction, but I wouldn't expect, there should be full sentences here, but you don't have to go into enormous detail. I think this document will ultimately be 3 pages at most, I think, or 3 or 4 pages at most. So remember, you're not trying to flesh out everything here. You're just helping me, your reader, understand what the steps are. This section on the outline, the introduction section, is going to end with a thesis statement. That's also going to be true in the paper itself. After you've gone into quite a bit of detail about all of this information, you will arrive at your thesis statement. I want to say something to you now that you might want to jot down, which is this. The thesis signals the end of the introduction. And I'll say that again. The thesis signals the end of the introduction. You're going to deliver all this information. You're going to raise questions. You're going to bring in statistics. And then when you're sort of done doing that, giving your reader a full sense of the issue or the topic, then you are going to have a thesis statement. That's going to be true in this outline. It's also going to be true in your actual paper. Remember, a thesis is a full sentence that breaks down an issue or an idea into its component parts, evaluates the issue or idea, and presents this breakdown and evaluation to the reader. Alternatively, it could be a full sentence that asserts something that is true and points to the evidence. Either way, it's generally one sentence, a lengthy sentence. It's fine if your thesis statement is long. Don't worry about that. You can always use semicolons if you need to cheat. But it's rare for a thesis statement to be more than a sentence or 2. So if you find yourself writing 4 sentences and calling it the thesis, it's not the thesis. It's probably closer to the topic. A thesis is usually just a sort of sum up of what the central point is that you're going to be pursuing throughout the paper. Okay. And again, all of this information, folks, is information that you've already gathered. You already know who the central sort of source is that you're going to be using. You already know what the dominant ideas are. You did that on your grid. None of this you're not putting any information in this introductory section that you haven't already acquired. And that's how this all fits together, right? So look at this. This is sort of a basic, this is what your first section of your outline is going to look like. You'll come to your thesis, and then we'll get into the body. We'll start by talking about this. I've got this historical / cultural research section. This is the section where you break into sections all the ideas and subtopics you raised in your lit review. There should be at least 3 sections, but you will likely need more as you learn more about the topic. And obviously, each section is going to draw on the exact quotes and paraphrase material that appeared in your lit review. So raise a point or idea or subtopic, provide an example or 2, and use your sources as opposed to personal opinions or observations to support what you're saying. Start with historical informational background and then expand from there to current information and finally your analysis of all this information. So again, a lot of this stuff you've already developed, you've already investigated, you've already presented some of it in your lit review. Here you're just sort of condensing it into sentences or thoughts or ideas so that I can see exactly the sequence that you're going to use as you move from one idea to the next. The sequence that you're going to use. That's why this is A, B, C, right? First, I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about the other thing. I would start from an historical point of view. You should know that I love that stuff. Key facts from your sources about how the issue evolved, developed, or came into being, as well as its defining characteristics and attributes. I really want you to show me that you have a sense of your topic's origin story, how it came to be, how it developed, how it evolved. That word evolved gets used a lot in my little template here because I really am interested in how something came into being. So you want to spend some real time thinking about that. If you act as though the topic, the issue just sort of appeared one day, that's going to be a mistake. You have to sort of be able to trace its origins and help us understand its implications for the here and now. So what's going to go here in this section is it's number 2, but it's the first body section. Obviously, section 1 is the introduction. This is the historical cultural research section. A lot of historical facts here, but the main point of what you're doing in this section is right here, folks. Consider these 6 elements. What is the thing, this thing you're writing about? What is its characteristics? How would someone identify it? Where is it usually found, historically or geographically? How and when and why did it originate? And most importantly, who does it impact? You'll give us some examples. Basically the structure is this. You'll make an assertion. You'll give us an example that illustrates that assertion. And then you'll bring in one of your sources to back you up. You're going to do that over and over again. You make an assertion. The sky is blue. Then you, then you show as an example, you take a picture of a blue sky, and then you quote from a scientist who explains why the sky is blue. It's assertion, example, support. Get that sort of phrase in your head and you'll do fine. Assertion, example, support. If the only way you can support something is that your aunt said it's true, then you know you're headed in the wrong direction. It can only be supported by things that come from your sources. So you'll talk about things historically in this section, historical cultural point number 2, historical cultural point number 3. And then from there, you'll do what I'm sort of moving it more into the present. Connect the topic's history to current practices. This is basically the same as what you did in the previous section, but now you're looking more specifically at this current moment as opposed to how the topic and issues originated and developed over time. And once again, you're drawing entirely on sources. Never ever say anything that you can't support with data or quotes or paraphrases from your sources. You can also do some speculation here about the future, but even that speculation has to be based on predictions that you've discovered as part of your research. In other words, folks, you're not saying things like, I think, in my opinion, it seems to me. You want to avoid that kind of language. So I give you some guidelines here for this section. Again, you see everything is, it'll just take a sentence or two to sum up what you plan to do here in the actual paper. And then down to analysis and discussion. Here's where you connect the dots for the reader, show how all the pieces fit, the way the information all blends together to make some final points. It's crucial you don't make any assertions or connections that aren't supported by the research. Always stick to what the research says. This is also a good section to bring up any opposing points of view. Your professor, in other words, me, likes to see that you have a full and comprehensive sense of the issue, even the sides you don't agree with. You don't have to spend a lot of time on opposing points of view. Just acknowledge they exist and point out why you don't find them valid. This will likely require eventually a little additional research. So just showing me that you have a full 360-degree sense of the topic, even parts of it that you don't necessarily agree with, but sometimes appears in the literature. So you're going to do that, and then the conclusion. Finally, you conclude the paper by suggesting any new insights. If something alarming or important was discovered in your research, this is where you highlight that information, particularly if you came upon something unexpected, something you didn't anticipate seeing. Also, and finally, you get to say something personal. If you have a personal recommendation about how the situation might be improved or changed for the better, you would make it in this final section. And so I give you like four things that you can, that you would ultimately do in the paper, but four quick things here that you would do on the outline. So, again, for the most part, folks, with the exception of maybe this conclusion part, a lot of this information that you'll be putting in the outline is information that you've already acquired. It all sort of fits together. And I know that's kind of hard to see sometime, but this is what we're doing. Don't make this a real, if you give me this document and it's 10 pages long, you know you've done it wrong. It really should be, I think, about 3 pages. I don't remember how long the sample one is. Let me see if I can find it. Here is the sample one that is posted in our module. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. That seems about right. So yours should be the same. And again, if you look at that sample one that's posted, you'll see that he's really just doing in this everything that I told you to do. He's sort of introducing, it gives a sort of a nice sentence here that kind of introduces the topic. He puts in some sort of, I think he's basing his observations here on one article in particular. He brings up this sort of research questions, then he moves into his thesis, and then everything else that I'm asking you to do. So I think that you'll find that the sample outline that's posted in the module is very, very helpful. You should refer to it again and again. It's only 4 pages. Yours should be about the same. And all I've done here in my outline template number 2 is sort of break down what is going on in the actual sample template. So between those two things, my outline template number 2 and the sample outline that's in the module, you should have a pretty clear sense of what's expected of you. And you don't have to double space it. Maybe a space and a half is fine, but I think just single space is probably fine. But as always, Times New Roman, 12 points, please. Make sure you use a header or a footer so that I can see how many pages you have. And that's it. There's some stuff in the module this week about transitions that hopefully you'll find useful. When we talk about transitions, I'll say one quick thing about this, which is a research paper is really only about one thing. There's one idea, and you're just exploring that idea from every possible perspective, but it's just one topic. And so transitions help you to convey to your reader all of this stuff is connected. So you say things like, in addition, moreover, furthermore, things like that help to establish the idea or make plain to the reader that all of these ideas are connected. You may seem to be going off in a different direction, but all of it is related to a single topic. Try keeping that in mind too as you move forward and as you work on this, on your outline. As always, the first part of the discussion is due on Wednesday. The final part of this week's discussion is due on Sunday. And as always, I'm available to you by email, or if you want to stop by for office hours on Tuesday or Thursday or Friday, please let me know. Good luck with everything. Thanks again. Have a great week.